So let's pop down to South Carolina.
Tonight, Ron DeSantis bucking political tradition in an effort to convince supporters there is life after New Hampshire, where he's polling in a distant third place, focusing instead on the next contest, diverting most of his resources to South Carolina.
I'm here in South Carolina to let everyone know we're going to be in the state, and we're looking forward to doing it.
The Florida governor is splitting his time in the run-up to the New Hampshire primary between the Granite and Palmetto states, effectively ceding the New Hampshire contest, where he has struggled to win over both the independent voters that seem to prefer Nikki Haley and the conservative Republicans that prefer to stick with Trump. His campaign telling NBC News most of his staff is moving directly from Iowa to South Carolina.
Given he's clearly struggling here in New Hampshire, do you think South Carolina is more fertile ground for you guys?
Well, I don't know that we're struggling here. I mean, I think, look, we haven't invested heavily in here.
DeSantis hopes to win over South Carolina's strong base of evangelical voters, the same group he courted in Iowa.
South Carolina, another state with a large base of evangelical voters, is that going to be a voter base that you guys target?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think you'll see the governor spend a lot of time, especially up in the Greenville-Spartanburg area. We're excited to go up there and really drive home, our bona fides on the issues that matter to people of faith the most.
But he lost the evangelical vote in the Hawkeye state by double digits to former President Trump. And in South Carolina, he faces an even tougher uphill battle.
It's great to be back in this incredible state.
Trump looms large over the state's primary, leading in the polls by nearly 40 points in a new survey from Trump's longtime pollster, and earning the endorsement of the state's governor, Henry McMaster. DeSantis' other rival, Nikki Haley, is playing on home turf as the state's popular former governor.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, South Carolina.
President Biden made a similar play for South Carolina in 2020, flying out of New Hampshire on primary night before polls closed in his decisive loss to Bernie Sanders. But Biden was falling back on a trusted firewall, his rock-solid base of African-American supporters who revived his campaign and delivered him the nomination.
We just won, and we've won big because of you.
DeSantis now looking for a campaign miracle in South Carolina, vowing to stay in the race for the foreseeable future.
Are you in through the end of March? Do you have the money and the staff and the ability to compete through the end of March?
Yes, on that, 100%. We can do that.
A roll of the dice for a DeSantis campaign searching for a change in the tide.
All right, Dasha Burns joins us tonight from the campaign trail in Nashua, New Hampshire. So, Dasha, is there a possibility it could actually work for DeSantis not spending time in New Hampshire? Follow me here. Because if his supporters there back Trump instead of him because he's not campaigning as much, it would actually deliver a knockout blow to Nikki Haley and make this a two-person race, which is what DeSantis wants.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's certainly what they're hoping for. And if he doesn't knock her out completely here in New Hampshire, they're hoping that will happen in South Carolina. And what I can tell you, Tom, is I have spent a lot of time in South Carolina. My colleague John Allen and I did a story just a couple of months ago where we traveled the state and wanted to sort of test drive to see what kind of support she really has there. That is a state that has gotten a whole lot more red, a whole lot more conservative since Nikki Haley was governor. Her home state is Trump country now, which is really problematic for Haley, and that's what DeSantis is hoping for.
And Dasha, I want to ask you about a new poll from Suffolk University and Boston and the Boston Globe and NBC Boston, specifically on the second choice preference in New Hampshire. And this is kind of interesting, right? Because the poll shows that when asked for their second choice, 37% of the respondents chose DeSantis. That's just compared to 8% for Donald Trump and 7% to Nikki Haley. And I bring this up because it's kind of interesting because it almost sounds like they maybe had a chance in New Hampshire if they would have worked for it. Is there a reason why they decided to sort of skip out on New Hampshire? And again, I know he's on the ballot. I know he's still campaigning there, but he's not aggressively campaigning there.
Right. It's a matter of where do you put your resources. Well, they decided to invest so heavily in Iowa, and then New Hampshire was coming so quickly afterwards. And so what they're hoping for is the timeline between New Hampshire and South Carolina will help them out a little bit more, because you've got an entire month between the Tuesday primary here and then the primary in South Carolina, where they can essentially use the Iowa playbook in South Carolina, whereas they didn't have that kind of leeway in New Hampshire to turn those people that are considering him as like that second choice to turn them into DeSantis being their first choice, right? Whereas they might have that opportunity in South Carolina. So it's a matter of they don't have infinite resources, so they had to decide where they were going to put them, Tom.
Dasha Burns for us. Dasha, we appreciate all your reporting.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.